Well, gardening really got started in the port city of Charleston, South Carolina, many, many years ago. That's the history of gardening as it started. And, of course, it progressed throughout our state. And it stopped in one of the most historic inland towns that one can find, Camden, South Carolina. And that's where we're going to stop right now and visit historic gardens of Charleston. The oldest and most historic inland town in South Carolina is Camden, the county seat of Kershaw County. Sallie Iselin is with Historic Gardens of Charleston. Sallie, exactly what is an historic garden?
Historic garden is any garden which has been maintained in the continual state for 50 years or more. What is unique about the garden we're in today is that it has been continually maintained in the same shape and form for over 150 years.
Holly Hedge has got a lot of history, and it begins with this magnolia tree. It's got to be one of the oldest in the Carolinas. Tell us a tale about this tree.
Well, during the Civil War, when Sherman was approaching the town of Camden, the family, Mrs. Johnson, the wife of the man who built the house, had her trusted house servants take the cured meat from the smokehouse and tie it up in the tree. And the color of the meat and the bark of the magnolia were so similar in color and shade that the enemy never found the meat that she used to feed her family and help.
This has got to be one of the few magnolia trees that I've ever seen that's got moss hanging in it.
Well, it's beautiful. It's gnarled, it's mature, it's wonderful. It's a very interesting looking tree.
Hedges are important in historic Camden, and this particular house has got some hedges that go way back in time.
Well, the story of this house begins before the house itself was built. Apparently, Mr. Johnson proposed to Anne Cunningham, and as a wedding gift said he would build her a beautiful garden. And this is the garden that he built in the 1830s, I believe, and they went when they were married up to Virginia and came back with a man named Timbers. And Timbers was the tyrant of the garden. And he oversaw all the construction of the terraced gardens that lead down to the Blackwater Swamp behind the house and the laying out of the hedges. Mr. Johnson sent him often down to Charleston to buy plants for his garden, exotic imports such as the fabulous cedars here. And he brought them back wrapped in native soil in big barrels and on flatboats up the Watery River, up the water system, the inland passage to Camden.
You certainly don't see many historic gardens with a bridle path.
No, this house has a bridle path of holly trees, a holly allée, a double row of hollies, which is about 600 feet long, which is quite unique. These hollies were native, they're native trees, and they were brought in by Timbers and his crew to line the bridle path in front of the house.
I know bamboo is a weed to many Carolina gardeners, but Holly Hedge uses this bamboo as a very good screening material.
The street that parallels Holly Hedge is now a pretty busy street for Camden. And the bamboo acts as not only a screen from the other neighbors, but also as a wonderful sound buffer.
The war between the states really devastated many of our old gardens in the Carolinas.
That is true. There are a few that are left in the same state as they were originally planned, such as this, a true period garden. But then there's another one I'd like to show you that is an historic garden restoration. Horse Ranch Hall was built about 1840 by a Scotsman. What is unique about this property are the gentle sculpted beds that lead from the house down to the main street here, Kirkwood Lane.
Well, another thing that's unique to me, I had no idea that water gardening was part of historic gardening.
Well, Mr. McCrae, the owner and original builder of the house, was an engineer, and he used the water from Horse Branch, the stream behind the house, to build his ornamental water gardens, and there are 3 of them on different levels that we'll look at today.
You've even got some plants in pots in the water garden.
Many plants, beautiful lilies, umbrella palms, irises, wonderful collection of plants.
Sallie, this holly tree that we're taking a look at right now really goes back in time. It could really draw Social Security if it wanted to.
It's a magnificent specimen, and many of the early builders of gardens in this part of the state used the native plant materials, the hollies, the eastern red cedars, the magnolias, and there's some fine examples here in this park-like setting.
Okay, tell us about some of the flowers that we see in front of the house, especially these sunflowers. That's somewhat unique itself.
Present owners built several years ago a circular perennial garden using many native plant materials and many plant materials that were given to them in the tradition of pass-along plants, so popular in southern gardens of this era. We have swamp sunflowers, we have Mexican sages, salvias, wonderful plants that bloom in golds and purples and silvers and shades of blue and dark pinks in the fall. And in the spring we use the other realm of the color scheme. We use the bright blues and pinks and whites.
And we don't see the hedges at Horse Branch like we did back at Holly Hedge.
No, the land form is what is unique here. The gentle roll to the hillside, the winding driveways, the symmetry, the archways with the native Carolina jasmine, and the magnificent trees, the park-like setting. It's very open compared to Horse Branch.
You mentioned the gentle roll. I don't believe I've seen many landscapes in the Carolinas that are terraced.
No, I think this is quite unique. I can't think of many others that are like this. Both Holly Hedge and Horse Branch have beautiful, gentle, rolling hillsides.
When you look at the entrance of Horse Branch, it's really got some gorgeous archways.
It has wonderful archways. Originally, in the documents that we have found, they were mock orange or cherry laurel. They have been replaced with a combination of jasmines.
Sallie, for Carolina gardeners interested in finding out more about historic gardens of Charleston, how can they get in touch with you?
I'm listed in the Camden phone book under Historic Charleston Gardens at 803-432-4204, and in the Charleston phone book under Historic Charleston Gardens.
Thank you for being with us, and good luck.
It was a pleasure.